My name is Abby. In today's video, we're going to be talking about limiting beliefs. So if you've been struggling, if you've been doing a lot of affirmations and feel like you put out so much effort and no matter what you do, you just end up right back at the start, this video is here to help you so that you can permanently move out of those limiting beliefs, put all that energy into creating the life you love. The first part of this video, I'm going to go over why you keep finding evidence for those limiting beliefs. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be using these dice to help break down visually of how you are going to remove those limiting beliefs. So let's get started. I mean, at this point, is it even a video if I'm not drawing on my magic clear piece of plastic? I want to really get you to understand why it is that you continue to feel like these limiting beliefs are true, or why they have like an anchor towards you. The reason they're limiting is because you have a desire. You want to potentially have a secure relationship. Maybe it's an amount of money, but how you see yourself and who you need to be, right? So this would be like the you with the limiting beliefs. And then there's the ideal you, right? So you so much, right? You desire to be this person, the ideal you. And really, I know you can feel it inside of you, this passion, this desire where you're like, I feel like it's true that this ideal version lives in me, and it does. However, the reason you're stuck in desire, meaning that you don't have it, that you long for it, is because of these limiting beliefs. Another thing you could think about them as anchors. Now, one of the biggest things I want you to realize is that your ideal version of you, which is whatever you're desiring, relationships, money, career, that ideal version is you. Deep down, who you were born to be. This limiting belief version of you is who you were told you were or are, who you were shown to be, your perception of how valuable or not valuable, how you were treated early on in your environment. Now, this isn't to say that we're going to blame everybody in your environment. They were doing the best they could. And I want to be really clear. Somebody actually made a comment, and I want to make this clear. When I say that the adults around you were doing the best they could, that isn't to say if someone was abusive towards you that, it's okay, we'll get over that. It's to say that there is nothing you could have done differently or better to get any different treatment, that environment was too small for you. That environment lacked what you needed in order to get your needs met. That does not mean that it's a detriment where you'll never get your needs met in the future. But if you use your adult mind now and look back and realize, maybe there is something you felt like, well, if I had done better, if I would have gotten first place, then I would have gotten that thing. That is part of the distortion of this. And potentially it could be still you thinking, okay, if I work really hard, if I can get that person's attention, then I'll have what I want. But in the meantime, these limiting beliefs, these perspectives you have of yourself, these perspectives are created by perceptions. And you literally, right now, there are like crumbs to the ideal version of you. Your senses, right? Smell, touch, taste, all of it. Literally, you will not be able to perceive of it, even if it's in your world right now. Most likely it is, but you can't perceive of it, right? For me personally, a lot of my journey and growth was through romantic relationships. I could not perceive of people who are actually healthy for me at the time because of how I thought I was. I needed to be a hero. What does that mean? I needed to find victims. I needed to find people who needed me so that I can continue to try to rescue them or help them, but it was at the cost of myself. So I continued to self-abandon and live according to this, thinking it was only if I do, then maybe I can get. So the first part of this is realizing the dynamic. Limiting beliefs are most likely coming from outside of you. So you're relating to your worth through someone else or some other group. Most likely it comes from childhood because you had to be accepted for your very survival. So realize why you did it. And the second part here is I want to also make sure you understand how powerful your current unconscious perceptions are to your reality. So if you grew up and you had a desire to connect, but the adults around you said, I don't have time for that. I've got to do important stuff. Okay. That could have been a situation that some of you out there experienced. And what would that tell you? That if they have more important stuff to do, that you're not important. okay? Now, another thing that could have happened is maybe you did have, unfortunately, adult abusive caregivers or people who were around you that were abusive. So it would be your perception as a kid that if you were valuable, then you would have been treated differently. So your perception of that could be, oh, well, I'm not worthy. So another situation that could apply to some of you out there, if your parent or caregiver constantly compared you, look at that kid over there, they listen to their parents, oh, look at them, they get first place. And what would you feel? You might feel, oh, they are good, but I'm not enough as I am. It's what I do. So I must do in order to be enough. So what happens right now, if any of these relate to you, and you can put in your own experience, but these basically are distortions of yourself. That person that you trusted, that you needed, they told something about you to be true. They were the caregiver, they were the adults, so they know best. So what happens? This is your perception. So you're not seeing the world right now as everything out there is possible. You're seeing it through the lens of who you were told or what you were shown early on. So what you're going to keep finding is the limiting belief experiences because your perception blocks out everything that would go against it, because this is your identity. And staying in your identity is how you stay safe, because guess what? That system is how you're alive today. It's been a way for you to stay safe. Is it uncomfortable? Is it a source of lots of suffering? Absolutely. For me personally, I thought, oh, I'm a hero. Oh, I'm a rescuer. If I am valuable that way to somebody, then I'll stay safe because they'll need me around. But in order to do that, I had to constantly self-abandon. I had to constantly check in to see if they were okay. So that consistent emotional abandonment was very confusing and very painful because I was looking at them as a source of stability. So I continued to self-abandon, and one of the worst feelings in life, in my opinion, in my experience, is perpetual self-abandonment and hoping that the person outside of you will be there for you. Again, I was seeing it through the lens of I'm not good enough unless ... So that belief is all I could find. That is literally the electromagnetic signature I was sending out into the quantum field. And guess what? I was getting a reflection of that. And my misunderstanding that that was an expression of me, just as I'm wearing a black shirt right now, I could be wearing a red shirt. But I was not aware of myself to realize, oh, I keep finding in my external world, my circumstances, the level of limiting beliefs, the level of beliefs I have. And another thing to think about it is your ideal version of you, those beliefs are off limits. Why? Because if you were a little kid and you went out and you were loud and you were a big, bright ball of energy, and you were told, whoa, that's too much. Or, hey, that's making this kid over here feel uncomfortable. You shouldn't do that. You're bad. That's not right. That's selfish. So you're like, oh my gosh, well, I shouldn't do that. That's not safe. I'm getting negative attention and I need to be accepted because I want to survive. So if you can start to understand that, oh, the ideal version of me, as I let go of these limiting beliefs, which I'm going to give you a visual demonstration of how to do it in just a bit, but letting go of those limiting beliefs is going to allow you to step into these beliefs that were off limits. As you can see and start to feel secure that these beliefs are actually now safe, letting those limiting beliefs go is how you stay safe. That's when your whole world can start to change, because belief is simply an idea that you have faith in. You are holding it to be true, but it's subjectively true, meaning it's true for you, meaning that that's how you see the world. So you keep thinking, oh, well, look, here's a person that treats me not very good. Here's a person that treats me like I'm not important. It must be true. If I get them to think I'm important, then I'll be doing good. Or, I don't feel very worthy, and I keep finding somebody who consistently shows me that, yeah, I'm not worthy because they're treating me like a piece of trash, or somebody who is replaceable. The same thing too, that I'm not enough. You keep finding people, maybe a boss, maybe a romantic partner, maybe a job, whatever the situation, and it continues to retell the story. As you start to realize, oh, there's a lot of other stories that I could be telling, as I start to realize this is simply one expression of myself, one aspect of my level of consciousness, as I realize, oh, there's choices I could be making when I let go of a belief and realize it's simply a belief, and start to rethink about and shift my perspective of my experience as a kid or how it is now. What story am I telling myself? What labels And what meaning am I putting on situations so that it recreates those stories? So now I want to show you visually on how you can start to dismantle these limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck in a reality that you don't want, you don't deserve. And I think it's time to let that belief go. So here's how. First, we're going to need Mr. Neil Diamond. This is my mom's favorite musician. So clearly I had to get the original Hot August Night album for my collection. But anyway, we're going to use him as the base here. So these pillars are going to basically be different beliefs holding together your self-concept, like the platform for your self-concept, okay? So next, I'm going to use this little elf or gnome. This is one of the things we got from Norway, actually, on the summer trip. So anyway, this is going to basically be you on your self-concept, and that self-concept is being held together by these pillars of belief. So how in the world do you move it, right? Right now, though, it's secure because you've had experiences early on that show you, oh no, it's not safe to be this new way. This is you, okay? So that's created a pillar. But you have to realize these are malleable. You can replace these. So going to that other example, if you have a belief that you're not good enough, right, or that you're not important, if that parent who maybe you went to connect and you wanted to have an emotional moment, right, like, oh, I love you, mom, I love you, dad, or whoever it was, or hey, let me show you this thing, and then they're like, oh God, I don't have time for your stuff. I've got to do important things. Well, clearly as a kid, you would think, oh, I guess what I have to offer isn't important. It's only important if it's about job or about money. So potentially you recreate that unconsciously, right? Because you're trying to heal it. So you might find a partner or people that are more focused on something else and they don't want to connect with you. So if you can realize, oh, wait a second, maybe it wasn't that I was not important. Maybe that my parent emotionally was overwhelmed and their priorities were actually not serving them. Maybe that they were so focused on how they were seen as at work that they ignored what was actually important to them. So as you can start to see it in a different way, like, hey, wait a second. Maybe it's not that it wasn't important. Maybe my caregiver was actually overwhelmed. So they were stressed out and they're just like, no, I can't. I got to go do this. So as you can see that, remove the idea that your emotional needs aren't important, you start to wiggle this, okay? And sometimes people think if you move one thing, the whole thing will fall apart. But that's not true exactly. As you start to re-reason on that old memory that, oh, wait a second, it was that I've always been important. My parent at the time did not have the emotional space. So it was not me that wasn't important. They did not have the time. They did not have the resources that I needed. So they fell short. They didn't have what was needed for the situation. It wasn't anything that I lacked. So even though this whole thing didn't collapse, what it did though is starting to create an instability. And that little gnome elf is starting to get shaky, right? If you grew up with the idea that, oh, I'm only valuable, I'm only worthy if I get good grades or if I'm really good in sports. If you could see, oh, wait, in the words of Gabor Mate, it's never what I do that gives me worth. I, as a human being, my actual existence is what qualifies me for my heart's desires. I never have to prove anything, but if I never got that message, my misunderstanding, it was, oh, I'm not important, but what I do is important. I'm not good enough, but when I do, that's when I'm important. But how in the world could you produce something valuable or important if you yourself had no inherent value? You can't. You can't end with a product in the end or end with an outcome if it didn't start there at the origin. Einstein said, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So as you start to realize, oh, actually, I was misunderstanding. It was never what I did that gave me worth. What I did was only worthy because of who I am. So when you can realize that with your adult mind and update that program, guess what? It can all break apart. As you start to see memories and your perspective of yourself differently, it can completely erode that idea that you've been putting faith in because you're going to update it according to your own values. And when you do that, you shift out and it's easier to let those limiting beliefs go because they never came from within you. It was something you were taught or you learned, you were told, or that you reasoned on. And kids are not good at reasoning because you don't really even get that skill till about 6 or 8. So how many memories do you have that are at the core and the pillars of a belief about yourself, that when you use your adult reasoning and all the wisdom and life experiences you had, how much can you start to dismantle them simply by going back and realizing the truth of you in that moment? You seeing yourself different and moving that way in the world and realizing it's not my fault and it wasn't something that I could have or should have done differently when I was a kid. I got some messages, I have some misunderstandings. When I update them, all those beliefs can fade away, and you don't have to spend hours and hours and effort constantly affirming. Affirming can help you start to feel comfortable in that new energy and going back and re-seeing that old memory in a new way. I mean, the truth of you will completely dismantle old beliefs so that you can move and step in to that ideal version of you. It's not about denying or repressing. It's about looking at it in the face and moving in a new way. And another thing that can really help here is somatic therapy, somatic movements to help you process physically those emotions that are trapped in your body or stuck in your body currently. Realizing the potency of seeing your old memories in a new way is only the first part of this dynamic change of beliefs. This next video right here is going to step deeper into how you can start believing something before you see it in your outside world. So check it out.